The Japanese have been famously pragmatic, at least since World War II. And you could argue they were famously pragmatic during the Meiji Restoration in 1885. They avoid colonization, unlike many other Asian powers. And I was in Japan for 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks, as a guest of the Japanese. I met diplomats, generals, professors, business people. And what struck me was the Japanese are seeking to pursue very sensible policies or measures to navigate a very volatile world. So let's step in Japanese shoes and view the world from Tokyo or Kyoto or Osaka, the 3 cities I visited. And if you're sitting there, north of you is Russia, which is not exactly the most friendly country in the world. After the 2 atomic bombs were dropped, Russians just took over Sakhalin Island. To the east of you lies North Korea. To further east of North Korea lies that wonderful country, the Middle Kingdom, China. And so if you're Japanese, you live in a rough neighborhood and you have an aging population. You've had an economy that hasn't really grown since the crash in the early 90s. You have a government that is stable, of course. The Liberal Democratic Party has just elected a pretty sensible character instead of a populist. And the Liberal Democratic Party has been in power for most of the time since 1945, since World War II. So you do have political stability, but the Japanese are very much under American influence. They're very much still under the American thumb. They rely on their security on America, although they have increased their defense budget from 1% of the GDP to 2%, and that'll happen over the course of 5 years. And the Japanese are far more alert and aware about the threats to their country. So from Japanese eyes, and many of the Japanese said so in private, that our biggest worry today is not China. We know China is belligerent. We know we have to contain China. We are working now with the South Koreans. We are working with the Taiwanese. We are developing relations with the Philippines. We are reaching out to India. We'll be fine, or we hope we'll be fine. We are targeting investment away from China to many other partners. We are also coming up, and because of our low population, we are coming up with more and more efficient ways of producing stuff. We have very good infrastructure. We are making sure that we export high quality products which sell at a cheaper rate than the Germans, and we're investing in our critical allies. So the Japanese are playing their hand as they see it, well economically, although some would argue they are very risk averse. Government debt is indeed very high, but they owe the debt not to foreign markets, unlike Argentina, but they owe it to their population, so hopefully they'll be fine. They do have a cost of living crisis as well, but if you go around Japan, you realize food is really cheap, everything is really clean, the infrastructure is sensational, the trains are phenomenal, the ports are impressive, their airports are extraordinary, maybe a bit too much automation for my taste, me being a chatty chap. But on the whole, Japan is a very impressive country. But Japan's biggest problem is an unreliable America. And that holds true not just militarily, not just geopolitically, but also economically. And the Japanese have been deeply upset, and they don't say it as openly, but they are still deeply upset about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, a trade deal that took over 10 years to negotiate, and then Donald Trump got elected and went out, it went of the window. And when Joe Biden came back to the White House, even though privately Democrats say, well, the deal was in long-term American strategic interests, no one dared to bring it back, because if you do, you lose swing votes in swing states and you won't occupy either Capitol Hill or the commanding heights of power in Capitol Hill or the White House. So because of American domestic politics, TPP was sacrificed at the altar. Now, if you are Japan and you rely on America, America is a big export market, America is a big investment destination, America is your military security guarantor, you're now extremely nervous. And the Japanese certainly want the Americans to listen more to them, about Asia, about China in particular. As the Japanese said wonderfully to me, that in the early days, America was a bit too rosy about China and did not listen to us. And now it is a bit too hawkish on China and it's still not listening to us. And so Japan, which is now 75 odd years removed from World War II, which is less subservient than before, wants more pragmatic, wants a more open-eyed, and wants a more sensible set of policies from Uncle Sam, and failing which they are charting their own course in choppy waters. And yes, the waters are choppy indeed. Before the Russia-Ukraine war, for the first time in history, a Russian and Chinese fleet circumnavigated Honshu, the main island of Japan. It's akin to someone taking a pistol and walking up and down outside your front door. That isn't exactly a very attractive prospect. So the times there are changing, and so is Japan.
Join the conversation at Fair Observer and subscribe to our YouTube channel.